Very well, thank you.
Afternoon all.
Marilyn,
Hi there.
how are you? I want to know, I was here before you this time.
Well done. We've still got a few to come, so that should be fine.
That's okay. While I got you here and waiting too, if you've been in, you'll notice that we haven't profiled against the competencies at this stage.
Yes.
We're just leaving that to a second stage before we do it, and then we can highlight the cost on the government funded courses, especially. So we'll just work through that over the next week or so.
Okay, because we've got some updates to do, so I'll send those to you.
Okay.
And also, as a side project to this, we're updating our marketing blurb. So we'll need to update the content that you've already got about our courses there. So I can send that to you at a later stage. Now, it won't be probably within the next week or so.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And then once we get going too, what we'll do is we'll set up whoever it is you want to nominate, and they can actually go in and modify to their heart's content directly. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Well, let me just look at Steve and Jamie.
Shake a head. Or we can do it for you, either one.
That's Steve nodding his head. We'll probably nominate our college team leader, Kristen, to do that. So that would be the common sense way to go.
That's easy. And we'll do it to feel easy onboarding for them, so so they can get it. And they can then whoever you nominate, even with things like events, they can post up their own events and all that sort of stuff as well.
Excellent. I think we might only be waiting. We're waiting for Ziad from Project Management, and also Faye.
Project Management, great.
Oh, that's right. I've got the grad cert of Project Management to go up as well.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's good. Oh, Rajesh Saran, I advise you. Who's this? Who's iPhone XR? We have a mystery.
Ziad.
Ah.
I was trying to call from outside office. That's it.
Fair enough. You can be the man, this international man of mystery.
Yeah. How are you? Good. How are you doing?
Fine, and yourself?
Good. Thanks.
Excuse me for a second. I'll just phone Faye to see what's. There's a few others, but we are recording it, so we'll see how we go.
Okay.
We're still waiting for a few others who have accepted, I think. Yes. But we should continue.
Okay. So would you like to start? And you, because recording, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yep.
But I would rather they be here from the start. So, but whatever.
Well, you can give them another couple of minutes.
Life gets in the way.
We'll give them another minute or so. Friday afternoon, you've got to have some leeway.
Well, the quicker they get here, the quicker they can go home.
Oh, I got the whip out. Oh, dear.
No, I think we should start.
Start? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a little bit of intro. I know a couple of you are across it, but just a way of introduction. So I'm a director of a company called Skills Logic. So we do basically skills management platforms. We describe ourselves as an Atlassian of skills management, but it's really an application ecosystem to help organisations and industry groups build capability practices. So it's really a focus about building what we call a competency-based workforce. So it's really about helping organisations identify what skills do they actually need for specific roles in organisations, and then being able to link that into the identification of skills gaps, the education of all sorts that fill those gaps, and then basically a community of practice that supports problem solving in the workplace, engagement and collaboration. So you can think of that as a very much a holistic approach. And we find that no two people, no two organisations start in the same way. So they're all coming at different levels of maturity. And if we think about a workforce more broadly, is if you took all firm types, it's pretty much a negatively skewed bell curve where about 65% of firms who are thinking about developing their workforce capability are really content-based. That is what I'd unkindly call the spray and pray. Let's throw more content at them and hope that something sticks. The tail end of that, the balance of the 35, and that is rapidly changing, are the ones that are really being driven to build a competency-based workforce, really focusing on specific skills and capabilities, and importantly, tracking how that changes as they need it in the marketplace. So as new skills come to the fore for different roles, really identifying that and actually reflecting those quite rapid changes and increasingly rapid changes into their workforce strategy. At the same time, those organisations too really want to have a focus on performance improvement of the people and the teams. So what we really come into then is starting to build the links between academia in terms of thought leadership, opportunities for innovation, collaboration and engagement. So there's a whole heap of stuff in that really, irrespective of where their starting point is, allows us to support them in their journey, whatever the starting point may be. And don't assume that the larger organisations are automatically in that top end. That may not be the case. We have one global organisation with a 200,000 workforce has got no idea where to start. So it is a very much a mixed bag. One of the things that's changing and given accentuation to organisations to really get this in is, apart from what it means for them as a business to actually really focus on skills changes, is compliance requirements. So organisations that are out of the US, particularly the publicly listed ones, out of the last 12 months, what they are now forced to do is, as part of their annual filing process, they've actually got to give a workforce report which identifies the skills gaps. And the reason they have to do that is that the SEC over there identified that if you have skills gaps in critical roles in your workforce, that represents a risk to you as a firm in terms of what you can do, your profitability, your sustainability, and therefore it'll be a risk to your investors. So that you can see that these sort of changes are really dramatic for organisations. That is coming to Australia, that compliance obligation. The question is when, not if. So it's really changing the dynamic. So the AIIA Skills Hub, for those, I'm assuming most are fairly familiar with AIIA, but it's a member-based organisation for organisations that have a digital workforce. So public sector, private sector, from startups to multinationals. So at the top end of the town, you have the Microsofts and Amazons and so on, right down. So, you know, the role of AIIA as an industry body is really to help them. So in my role in the AIIA, I am now also the Deputy Chair of the Queensland Council. And not surprisingly, my focus is to actually help the organisation in the whole skilling agenda now. So you can see it's a bit of a culmination of a whole range of things. So in the limited time that I've got, and again, thanks for everyone making themselves available. Though I suspect some of you mightn't have had a choice, but I know how hard it is to get so many people together, particularly on a Friday. But I want to give you a little bit of a feel on the way you can potentially engage as we progress. Now, the hub itself, we only kicked that off the week before last. It was launched. At this stage, it looks like we're getting close to 100 registrations a day come in, so it's starting to already get some traction. The way the AIIA is engaging is particularly on the skilling assessment part of it, which I'll explain in a little bit. It's going into its member organisations as a priority and saying, hey, look, if you don't have your own frameworks and a way to approach it, bring your whole workforce in here. You know, you can get a workforce report for free. And that also applies to government agencies. So we've got government agencies now looking at it in exactly that way, where they want to bring on a workforce of 500, 600 of their IT team specifically to do that despite anything else. So over time, it is going to start to get some serious depth to it. As well as you can imagine, being an industry-based organisation, we're going out to the broader industry, those who aren't a member, and saying, right, now this is how you can engage. And that really, the opportunity for the education side of things, it really comes into its own for you as a university to think about industry engagement, to think about how you promote capability, but also in that thought leadership role around different types of content. And this will evolve again over the phases of release. So let me just share a screen. If anyone's got any questions, just please jump in and interrupt. I'll give you a live view of the Skills Hub as we speak. And I know some of you have registered. I think we've got about half a dozen folks from CQU already registered, obviously coming in to start to have a snoop, which is great. And over the next little while, we'll actually be exploring about how do students get access to this, and ideally linking into your alumni. So it means that you can keep that engagement with that CQU community, that CQU ecosystem, because, you know, as all universities really struggle about what does it mean for alumni and how we engage with alumni across the board. So when you come into the Skills Hub, but for those who haven't, I'll actually take it back a step. For those who haven't registered, if you go to the AIIA website, there's a link on that on the front page now. You simply register. And when you register, it asks about your affiliated organisation. And if you, I don't know if it's CQU or CQ University, so start typing it, it'll populate, finish that, you'll get a confirmation email, tick, yeah, confirm, and you're in. It really is as simple as that. Once you've registered, let me just go into this area. This has just got dummy data in the back area. Now you'll notice too that the front page is about, it's basically just a series of content. Once, and this has a level of, and there's role-based, permission-based. So what will actually happen is on this front, your administrator area, it's all data-driven. So this is the front end, there's a whole heap of dashboard widgets that actually start to summarize the data for those associated with the CQU registration. So you can start to get profile and you can start getting reports out of it. For the average user, they won't see any of that because it doesn't relate to them. When they come in, just to highlight for you, there are some, there'll be a growing pool of demo videos about how to do skills assessments and right through. A little bit about the hub, and there's some things there. There's a couple of flyers, a little explainer video. Just to highlight the rollout of this as we go through this, and you would have noticed for those who are in, some of the functions aren't available yet. We're rolling this out in a series of phases between now and April. These dates will change a little bit because it'll actually coincide with the number of registrations and companies as well. And really the purpose of that is so we don't hit up the initial users with everything. Rather we can do it in a phase by phase way. And that'll keep getting updated. So just please go back to there to get an idea of what's happening. There's a little bit about what the competency standard is for those who are familiar. The core competency framework that this is defined around is SOPHIA, so Skills for the Information Age. So that's what your award courses are accredited against by ACS. That allows the ability to track the short courses and micro credentials in exactly the same way. Ultimately, when your students come in, the courses will be profiled at a program level, degree level, and that will pre-populate their skills passport for them, which they can then add. So their skills passport basically is their management environment for supporting lifelong learning, their skill attainment, their skill profiling, and they will be able to do different things in this. For example, and again, there's no data in here, but I've just got some summary data against SOPHIA. So it shows that, you know, the majority of this skill base for the dummy user is around strategy and architecture, as well as change and transformation, whereas the others are much lighter. So it says what they have got. When they come in as organisations, as employers, they can then, if they have profiled SOPHIA against their roles, they simply upload that, and then they go in and they can profile it against those roles for their organisation. So for example, the only public domain career pathway, if you like, when they go in, is that of the APS. So if they were an APS worker and they clicked on that, there is the 150 jobs that the APS have defined. So that's the SOPHIA profile, and they're very role specific. From that passport view, what will also happen is that there'll be additional skills outside of SOPHIA that an individual wants to build. So for example, project management. We can have project management competencies in there in the same way. So any combination of these competency profiles becomes the individual professional profile. So that allows them to build, add to their heart's content. When they go from that, they can also attach evidence of attainment. So things like digital badges, we're integrated into the badging platforms like Badger, Credly. So if they get a badge, they can also display it here. And there is a public view of this where they can actually make that available, for example, on their LinkedIn profile, exactly like you do with LinkedIn today. Here's a link to my profile, same sort of thing. They will be able to, and we haven't got it enabled at the moment, where they can actually add their experience level. So if you think about what that means, I've got my experience, my profile, here's my skills assessment, effectively there's your CV. So they can keep updating it and contributing to it to the extent they need to. When they've done all that, and I've just explained, for those who haven't stepped through it yet, when they're doing it, there'll be two views. One is purely a data view. There's a list by these categories. So there's 6 categories of SOPHIA. Then each of those have a number of subcategories, of which then the competencies sit in. So if I was in information strategy, here's the additional ones that would appear. Once they've done that and they've saved it, they're happy for it, they again start to get this more of a visual view. And when they do this, and this just makes it easier to navigate their various assessments. So if they picked up business change implementation, the competencies in that subcategory, there's 4 of them, it shows where they are. If they mouse over them, it gives them, you know, the pop-ups of what it actually means, and they can change that on the screen without needing to go back. Save that, Bob's your uncle, I've got my new profile. Sorry, let me go back one. In this as well, in fact, if I go back to my skills passport, button happy. If I go back to my skills passport, I can then get my report on my profile. I can, and exactly, it's the detail of Sophia. Again, it is a bit interactive on the screen, but then they can print that off, download it, save it on their desktop, attach it to their CV, do whatever they want to do with it, and they can save different versions of this as they go along. So that's the skills passport view. When they get into the education side, the courses as a catalogue are there. Now there's a couple of things to note with this. So they can search this by short courses, professional development, micro-credentials, award, but we've just introduced platform providers, the likes of Microsoft. So we're about to publish the 1,581 Microsoft courses, and they are also wanting to put their competencies against roles for that certification in this as well. So people who want to manage their certification process can do it in here, and they can actually, same way as they do Sophia, actually manage their competency compliance requirements and accreditation. And one of the things that you may be aware of, that the relationship between these major platform providers like Microsoft, Amazon, is a lot of their content they have in their academy, they're quite happy to make available to academics for use in the classroom. They will, so you as academics, you can access this and you can take any of their content to embed in your courses that you want. Now, one of the things we're just negotiating with them on at the moment is that if a student wanted to access that, say for a certification, it might normally cost $125 for the certification. They're talking about making that available at a discount rate to students for about $25. So there can be some nice little hooks in there for students as we go along. So we're hoping that we'll be publishing Microsoft probably early next week. Amazon will probably be the next one on board, IBM. So all the major providers from that. But it's really about that certification, albeit for some of them, Amazon in particular, they also have a lot of content that's general. So if you want to know about cloud computing that's not specific to AWS, there's content in there as well. So there is some generic stuff that you will get value in for your own courses as well. Importantly for the individual, the way it works here, particularly for the micro-credential, the short course stuff, is that there is a commercial deal between the university and AIIA, which actually means that for participants coming through AIIA, they can actually get a 15 or up to a 15% discount on some of those courses. So it's actually quite attractive for them. Some of those courses, and I'll just try to find one. So for example, if there was a course, here's a short course from QUT about leadership in the digital age. It's mapped against Sophia. If the user clicked on that, it would say, here it is and at what level. So it actually gives the user some information so they can say, well, I'm actually better off investing in this short course than this one because it'll contribute 4 of the competencies I need. That sort of thing. Now, one of the things, I don't know if CQU, do you use Course Loop for your, well, a number of the course design repositories that you may use, QUT uses Course Loop, also have a bit of a competency mapping against courses, more for, again, the accreditation process. Where they have been done externally, we can just plug them in. In this case here, we do that manually as an upload. But if you move into that sort of space where you use those sort of platforms, as things actually get captured in those repositories from the university, we can just suck it up. So it makes it nice and easy, takes the burden out, or we can actually do the review on a course for you and do it, you review it, and then we publish it. So we can do all that work. Now, importantly, the main agenda here, we start to get into the engagement part, the thought leadership part. This is where we're starting to focus around collaboration and performance improvement. There will be a range of things, again, progressively rolled out. When they get into the community, you'll notice that there will be a series, or are a series of things in here. What we call tools. So tools are specific frameworks that they may be taught or would be taught that may be part of a course, or it might be, you know, just general used in practice. But they're written as and there's a whole library of these, and this will grow. This is just the starting point. I think there's a couple of hundred in here, 187 to start with. And when they call them up, just trying to find one that might be a good example. I'll just do one of these, force field analysis. So what it has is there's a, it's written for the practitioner, for the professional. What is it? How do you apply it in practice? There may be images, there might be videos, there might be recent articles. And from an article point of view, if there's a journal article, we back into EBSCO library services, so it's available to them, covered under the license. Templates, case studies, and so on. So self-contained. Now, these tools, what we will increasingly be focusing on is, it was really clear from initial users and clients as we're going through, that the open stuff needs to be academically created and curated. We started with the big end of the consulting firms to do this, and we actually had customer pushback. So PwC, for example, got really excited. Oh, we could put a whole heap of stuff there. And we found that corporates who then weren't a customer of PwC pushed back. They said, oh no, it's just a consulting firm trying to sell us stuff. And they actually didn't trust the validity of material, which I found fascinating too. So the open material in here is academic focused, and it may come in multiple ways. So again, one of the next stages is we'll have premium content. So if it's something that comes out of your research, for example, or is actually embedded in a course at the moment and designed around that, if we take that, we can actually attach a payment mechanism to it so you actually get paid. So there's a couple of hooks in that as we go along. For the academic as well in the community, apart from the tools, and I should state that one of the things we define in this is these domains of practice around what we call channels. So a channel, a default is all, but if someone was just interested in, for example, learning and development, that's all they would get. So they can focus down on a domain, project management, cybersecurity, or whatever it is, without being bombarded with everything. And as the content builds with this over time, that becomes more important. So then, and this is the event area, so your folks can come in and add CQU events, that sort of thing. And think about this too, that from an alumni engagement point, there'll be a lot of people out there working for companies that will have access to this that actually might be lost alumni to you. So it allows you to really promote the CQU engagement back to bring them back into the fold. Importantly too, both for tools and individual resources, and resource is the individual artifact, an article or whatever. So if you've got a thought leader piece or a blog that might be sitting on the CQU side or on a different website or whatever, you can actually link to it and actually engage with the community and link that around a discussion. So you can start a conversation. So if I had, for example, this, I can create a discussion. It then pushes it over for exploration and pushing it out to the community itself. So you can actually see that what we're starting to do here is create an environment where this material for that individual, they don't just come in here when they're interested in a course, this becomes part of their day-to-day. I want something that'll help me solve this problem. Where can I go? There's a couple of other things that will plug into this. So for example, we integrate to the World Economic Forum and their translational maps. So those translational maps in these themes will appear in a panel here. So you can actually see the richness of this over time will get deeper and deeper. One of the key features of this, again, for the engagement, this will appear in a couple of places, is we'll have an expert, ask the expert area. So for an individual, if they want to engage, might be a thought leader in cybersecurity, they can actually pose that to the academic community to actually a subject matter expert for actually starting the process off. The problems, basically, if they have an issue in their workforce, they can post it up here to the community. Basically, it's all forms based. Here it is, what is, attach a document, and it's done. Importantly then is, again, we get into the collaboration side then, is that if it is not solved between the community, they can then issue that out as an opportunity to the research community. And we push it out as an opportunity, same sort of thing, but we target, because it's all data driven, where the experts are, where the research centres are. And as part of that, one we're just starting to populate is a register of the research centre, research expertise area. So a live example we had from Queensland Health, one of the first ones we did about 18 months ago, was we had a clinician at a hospital in Queensland Health say, look, we've got this problem of injuries to nurses lifting critical care patients out of their beds. Surely there's devices or something that can help them without being exposed to that. So it basically looks at, well, here's a robotics issue. It could get issued out so that academics can respond to that. But we then have basically a little mini website. Here's the Centre for Robotic Vision. Here's the research. Here's the institutions. There's a case study. But then what's the contact point? Basically, it's a bridge. So the communication doesn't happen in here. It's they can find where the experts are, find where the thought leadership is. This is what they do. Now go contact them. In exactly the same way, and I'll just jump out of this at the moment. Sorry, stop share. I'll come back in just into the PowerPoint. Is that in exactly the same way we've got the research centres, but we've then got the academic database. So you as academics, as thought leaders, here's a little profile, here's your LinkedIn, here's your link to your profile on the CQU website. So if someone's looking for someone who knows about digital innovation in Rockhampton, right, here's the 3 people, here they are, in exactly the same way, push the button, go contact, here's their email, help to bridge. One of the key things that will be of interest is in both will and mentoring. So for students, we're actually just doing a getting ready to turn this part on now for the education providers in here. So students can list. Now, a student project, WIL project, can be either singular, a student to a project, or a team to a project. It can be self-nominated. It can be assigned by the unit coordinator. Our respect, we don't care. It then gets published. That provides the ability for the individual, the student, here's my little profile. If I've got a skills passport, here's a little view of my skills profile. You know, some other relevant experiences, and an area to add their portfolio. So if they've done a project on doing a wireframe for an app, right, here's a YouTube video of what I did, here's a little PDF, they can upload it, here it is, here's a sample, and then industry can access that. Similarly, in the same way, employer organisations can either post a challenge, which will become a WIL project, or post the challenge that's open to an internship. So that's an internship in this context is a paid commercial arrangement with the student. So again, that matching, that same process is what happens with the mentoring process. And it's, here's my profile. The thing that differs in the matching process is the individual needs to have done their skills assessment, and it gives priority to the skills gaps. They can tick which one they want to focus on, so that it can actually feed into the competency, because a mentor has to have done a skills profile because we want to leverage from their strengths as well as their experience. So a mentee in this case might say, look, I'm looking for a senior manager who's a project director, has had experience for 5 years and comes from this type of firm. That's the profile. So the matching algorithm in that basically does that, lists them in terms of priority, what percentage match is it, and then it's an opt-in. They don't see who each other are, unless it's like, I unkindly say Tinder for mentoring, but it's that sort of process. Hey, I like the cut of what you're talking about. I like it. I'm interested. Here's my profile. If you accept, I will then have your information. And then they can contact each other. So, so that gives you a little bit of a feel. So when we're starting to talk about all of this stuff, including this academic business collaboration side of things, it becomes a really engaging way to sell the expertise of academics to industry for ongoing engagement. So there we go. Now, there's a few things in this, and we've still got a few things to work through, Marilyn, about models for this. Let me just stop sharing. Is things like, if there is content that you might be doing as part of a course and you want to add in here, we also have a commercial arrangement, a remuneration model, either for the individual academics, or if it's coordinated by the school, it comes back to the school. It's exactly like Spotify. So the more content you create and you put in, the more it's viewed, you get to share in the premium content revenue pool within AIIA. So it can, as this actually builds up, be actually quite lucrative for those who are prolific thought leaders and actually want to contribute. At this stage, most universities have said, "We'll just leave that up to the individual academic. It's too hard for us to try to coordinate." More than happy to explore that. And basically we have a really simple authoring agreement. The principal part of this is that there is a requirement that you are not utilising CQU IP. It has to be public domain, like what's a SWOT, and you author that. It can be CQU IP so long as you've got permission and you can tick the box on that. But that's a discussion with CQU. So the public domain stuff, and you think about it pragmatically, most of the stuff that gets taught, 95% of it is public domain. Really, what is the IP in a course? Largely, it's the written material, the guide and the design. The individual stuff in here is not actually copyright. So we want to attribute as we would normally do, but that's all we need. So really it's the effort. So there is an angle to that. There is the ability to push out thought leadership. And we're encouraging the AIIA members in topics of interest to actually propose this. So this could actually be things like, and will be things like, webinar sessions where we want to have the thought leader, cybersecurity, come and we actually put it out to, and there is a 45-minute topical thing that we make available to members to go. Again, just a different type of content in that. So there is, as we progress, there is a whole plethora of academic engagement opportunities there that can be really low touch, or for those who are such motivated, come and play to your heart's content, and hopefully, you know, for everyone's mutual benefit. One of the other things to be aware of too is that because the way we operate our platform, when you create and you engage in a thought leadership and content area in the open environment, if it was something proprietary only for AIIA, for example, they might commission a research piece with you, that's only available, that's what we call a private resource. The open stuff is actually across platforms. So we're going to be doing the same thing with AI Group. So this sort of content, literally at a push of a button, can be made available in terms of the AI Group's industry capability as well. So as it sort of gets traction, it will be much broader than just AIIA. So we manage those environments on their behalf. One of the hot ones at the moment we're just shaping up is in conjunction with Aviation Australia, and CQU's there's a formal education partnership being worked up between Aviation Australia on some award stuff, new award stuff, but all this digital capability will automatically, and Queensland Government are going to partner in that to actually promote that really heavily across industry in Queensland. So that's actually quite an exciting one that's emerging. So it's about leverage. So lots of opportunities in there, and what I would suggest that if individuals have queries, you might have some ideas that might support your research activity, shoot me an email. Happy to kick things around with you and look at options that might fit in to help your engagement with the employer organisations.
Peter, I've got a quick question. In our previous discussions, part of that discussion was our students being able to build a skills profile.
Yep.
However, they aren't members and they can't be members of or create a profile, as I understand it from AIIA.
Oh, no, good question. What we've now got agreement on is they can through CQU. So we use the language in the hub now of employees and affiliates. So an affiliate of CQU is your students and your alumni.
Excellent.
Yeah. So now this can even go, so we've got a couple of universities are saying, hey, look, we really want to engage with our IT alumni. They're going to promote to them. And we actually also have the model in the AIIA one where the premium content will be subscription based. They pay for that. It's $20 a month. So they'll get a bit of a discount because they're associated with CQU, but CQU can also pick up a royalty. So again, making it sustainable. So long as in exactly the same way, when they register, they nominate that they're affiliated with CQU, and in effect, you own them in your relationship.
Okay, so they obviously choose CQ University Australia as the affiliation.
Yep.
But is there any method where you validate that connection?
Not at this stage. If we got to the stage where you wanted to have single sign-on, and so for example, you might on your platform have an environment where alumni can come in and access some things behind your firewall, we can integrate with you, have single sign-on that validates. Another way is increasingly universities want to be able to give their alumni basically their student email that they keep for life. If you've got, we can validate that way as well.
Yes, we do have an email for life as well, so that probably would be the way to go.
We could easily just say, use your CQU email, and that actually ties them to the organisation.
Excellent, excellent. Yep. I was wondering how that would work.
Yeah. So at the first instance, until you get to that, but we could do that sort of validation on the email. Really, we could pretty much do from day one. But one thing to be aware of too, Marilyn, from a the short course, the revenue sharing arrangement, is that if you guys were really keen on that engagement model with alumni, we can then have the conversation, because AIIA are actually happy to waive any revenue sharing there, because we can make it sustainable by engagement with the alumni, depending on numbers.
Okay, the other question I had, that's for the Skills Hub and students. Does that mean now that the alumni and students affiliates can also join the AIIA, set up a profile there?
Not as official AIIA members. It's like a quasi relationship. But one of the things we're talking about, you'll find that your alumni, some of them will be running their own business,
yes.
Or senior executives in a business, is that we're trying to work a model where if they then become that and they're attached to, say, CQU, give them a 20% membership discount or something like that. We're trying to work that sort of incentivization out, because at the end of the day, why is AIIA doing it? Yes, it wants to help build the workforce, but it's about driving membership, yes, based on the value. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else?
I had a few. May I? So it's a good system. I have few questions. I will start with this one. So the students who are going through AIIA and join to a course, does the system validate later if they finish the course or they acquire the skill actually? Because a skill passport is telling they have the skill. Yes. But how that information is collected unless they finish the actual those Sophia skill by finishing the course?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's their record, so they could invent that if you like, but the reality is that would be tested out by an employer, which is obviously one of the big motivators here for placement. At the end of the day, the veracity of it, we don't audit it. It's up to the individual. So if they don't finish the course, for example, that's going to be reflected in their evidence of attainment. If they haven't got the qualification, you'd think an employer is going to ask that question. So we don't get into that assurance of the information side. We don't want to do that. But it is interesting because one of the things that's already been raised by a couple of the larger employers is what are education institutions doing with things like blockchain to give verification of qualification. So that's a different conversation, but it's interesting that that's where it's coming from. So the end of the day for that individual, and if they, because if you think about the different environments, it's all user defined. Their information around the skills passport doesn't need to be specific around Sophia. There'll be other frameworks in here as well. And they might have, if we look 12 months down the track, CQU might say, look, we actually now want one for all of our alumni across all our faculties. Fantastic. And it becomes our branded one. So if you've got an individual that's in both the CQU one, the AIIA one, and the AI group, it doesn't matter. They only have to click a button and they actually just get the different content. So again, their skills passport, we don't care what environment, it's about the framework you apply, how you've done that assessment, and you take that job to job.
Thank you. the next one I was wondering, because Australian government or Department of Home Affairs has Skills Select.
Yes,
Is
there's
it
a whole swag of
complementing that?
things out there. Yeah, it's interesting. There's at different levels. There's a whole range of marketplaces out there that will continue on. Some of it will shake out. Federal government has a number of initiatives. None of them are tied together, but we're actually in the process of negotiating with the federal government at the moment to roll out a pilot using this platform under AIIA as a national credentials market for digital careers. We're going through that now. That will be probably an 12 to 18 month pilot, and that will be basically the centralised hub. Then we've got digital skills organisations. Then you've got things the states are doing. None of these are connected up. That's just the market reality. At the end of the day, our view of the world is where the employers are, that's who's going to rule. I don't care what government's doing. So for example, New South Wales government has turned on a skills passport for high school leavers, and they call it some sort of wallet. It's general skills, but it doesn't link to anything. So there's actually no proposition for a student to stay there. Doesn't link to employers, it doesn't go anywhere. So this linkage, the critical part of this, hence the AIIA relationship, is visibility for employers for recruitment and upskilling. It has to be driven by them. And it is interesting because it's there's so many initiatives, and part of it's driven by COVID, wanting to get things out there, but also the big players themselves. So one of the things that Microsoft are interested in is how do they extend exactly this capability to their global partner network. So for example, when a WIL project gets up here, they don't want to restrict that just to the AIIA members, but they want to back end this so they can promote that to their global partners. Oh, fantastic. This is about the ecosystem.
Yep. So it's just probably SCS also has their initiative on the same space. So you somehow collaborate or...
Sorry, who's that one?
SCS, Australian Computer Society.
Oh, no, they don't, AIIA and ACS have been in conversations for years about collaboration. ACS have their own skilling platform around Sophia, so people can use that, and they've had that for a while. That's actually a major stream of revenue for ACS because of the consulting work they do. So going in and accreditation of courses, as well as consulting. So they're one of, there's about 14 accredited consultants by Sophia in Australia that work with industry. So they're one of them. So they make some good money out of that. They'll always do that. They have their own courses. They are not a marketplace. They won't go any further. They're so far away from it. We want to collaborate with them. They just don't know quite how to yet. And with all the changes they've been faced with and some of the challenges, until that settles down, I don't think we'll be able to progress too much.
And can I just jump in here at this particular moment? The difference between our students using the Skills Hub and ACS site is that the student themselves have to be a member of ACS to get hold of the Sophia Skills. However, for this one here, it's the university that is the member.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. That's it. So and it's important to understand because unless you're an affiliate or an employee, Joe Blow off the street can't get access to this. It is that sort of community around the AIIA member base.
Peter, you talk about matching students, or it's about recruitment and connecting to jobs. Do you have a feature or plan a feature where students upload their skills, it will recommend them to jobs on Seek or through your members?
Yeah, we're actually actively exploring different options at the moment. You know, SEEK's very active in this space, particularly trying to define skills. It's not quite at the level where employers want it because they're really using advertisement data, which is, you know, really, really meta level. But the answer is absolutely, to the extent that it may be that in this environment, there's actually a dedicated job board that all this data pumps into within AIIA. And we're exploring different versions of that over the next 6 months to be able to actively do that. Because a lot of it, and this is the beauty about if you've got the skills data, the power's in the data. One of the challenges for employer organisations is if you look at, say, what is on a job advertisement with SEEK, it's rarely will it mention skills. It will be what experience and what domain, and that's about it. Then the skill level sits outside because HR doesn't have sight of that. One of the things we embed into this that will turn on once we get to a threshold participation level is market data. So we actually pull in all the advertisement data from Glassdoor, just like you see on the SEEK site. So if I want to get a project manager's role, what's the demand by advertisers in Australia? What's the average salary? So I can actually start informing. One of the important parts of this, which really becomes interesting for students and the school leaver side, is helping them to inform what career pathway do I go. It's like, I want to be a lawyer, and then finding out at the end of the degree, oh, only 10% of lawyers get a job. Well, I really would have liked to know that beforehand. Yeah.
Thanks.
Peter, I recall a previous conversation between us where you were saying that eventually high school leavers and high school students, and obviously leavers, will then be able to map their competencies as well to track their career using this.
Yeah,
So
it's probably less about the competency side for them as distinct from, you know, some of them might start to do things. They might have part-time jobs or whatever. Some of it, you know, some of it they might be doing some technical training as part of their curriculum, you know, some coding. Yeah. Well, yes, they can start doing that if they elect to, but it's more about promoting that career pathway option for them. But yeah, they'll definitely have a skills passport, you know, and, you know, think about it as a pipeline in terms of the career journey. They'll be starting really skinny on the skills and the experience, but then building it up over time. And we're exploring that with the Education Minister at the moment in Queensland about a potential pilot to specifically about digital careers as we speak. And
does that have any correlation with the Gateway to Industry project?
It will be very it will be aligned to. We'll say that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. What we're not trying to do is duplicate things, but, you know, again, it's that line of sight. And again, in different industries, it's more problematic. So if you took, you know, the defence industry, can't find, you know, the new hires coming out of TAFE and universities for their jobs that they've got, never alone what they're going to come online in 10 years' time. So they have to engage with school leavers, you know, or even, you know, those going into high school. Trying to promote, you know, so and the employers, like we took defence for example, the amount of money they spend on programs to support defence and engineering careers for high school leavers is quite phenomenal. So we're seeing more and more of this, and this is one of the drivers of the big platform providers in this environment, is this recruitment part. You know, I said to Amazon, I might have relayed this to you, is, you know, making their content available for free to academics. I said, well, why are you doing that? Because you're not the Salvation Army. And they just laughed and said, no, you're right. Sorry, I just, you're right. It's about getting line of sight of students for potential hiring because we don't have it now. And we just can't do it through the likes of SEEK. So really they're trying to engage earlier, you know, and support. That's one of the real reasons of supporting things like internships and will. Okay. So yeah, but please, anyone that, has any ideas, has any thoughts about how they might want to engage, questions, feel free to give me a contact. Okay. Terrific.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay. Thanks for everyone's time. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.